Coming up, what's co-living and does it have the power to alleviate Jacksonville's affordable housing issues? We're turning the mic over to Jacksonville co-living expert from PadSplit, Emanuel Premate. All right. But first, a tasty musical treat from one of Jacksonville's very own Firewater Tent Revival. Hello, Jacksonvillians. I'm your host, Ian Brown. This is the Jacksonville Commercial Real Estate Show. We bring you dynamic local entrepreneurs, deal makers, thought leaders ready to open up, dive deep, and unpack our local commercial market so you can invest with greater confidence and accelerate your own success. This show is lovingly produced by yours truly and Yield Coach Capital. To stay up to date on Jacksonville's nuanced commercial real estate market, real estate events, and investment opportunities, go to investwithacoach.com, answer a couple of questions, and join the team. In exchange, you'll receive 107 questions to ask a deal sponsor, so you'll be better prepared when evaluating your next real estate opportunity. Today, I'm here with Jacksonville co-living expert from PadSplit, Emanuel Premate. Welcome to the show.
Ian, man, thank you so much. I appreciate the exception, right? We're more so involved in the residential real estate space, and I know you and a lot of your viewers are involved in commercial real estate, but with PadSplit, it's kind of unique. There's some crossover in, kind of an unofficial way. So I appreciate you inviting me over and having a chance to kind of talk more about what we're doing here.
Of course. You and I were fortunate enough to have some coffee the other day at Southern Grounds, and I think your topic definitely deserves an episode. I think that affordability in Jacksonville and housing, it's not just a single family residential issue. You have tax credit multifamily, you have some tiny home communities, you have a lot of things going on trying to come at this from different asset classes. All right, but I've got a burning question for you, E. How does PadSplit take housing affordability head on and still provide owners a better return than a traditional rental or apartment?
So the belief at PadSplit is really that those who are closest to the affordable housing problem should be the ones in power to be the ones to help solve that problem. And so really all PadSplit is a platform that gives investors the tools that they need to be able to effectively run their shared housing operations and have the tools, process, systems, and teams backing them up to be able to run their shared housing business effectively and most importantly at scale. Okay, and that's really been kind of that key component when you think about rent by the room model and shared housing is how can an investor get into this and handle this effectively and at scale. And so where we really provide value is doing the marketing, making sure that those rooms get booked, doing the paid advertising on Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And our target demographic is the workforce, right? Those making between $20,000 to $60,000 a year. And so when we kind of look at Jacksonville, for example, in the market that we have here, we have 990,000 employees here in Jacksonville. This was just pulled from the Federal Reserve website. And of that, 43% fall within our target demographic, those that make, that 20 to 60,000. So that's 425,872 employees that need affordable housing. Now, of course, I'm not here to say that PadSplit is going to capture all that. I think that's where it really comes into this community effort of those who are in, commercial and new build and affordable housing. But PadSplit is just part of that solution. And it's empowering those investors who have those underperforming single family rentals to, convert it into that rent by the room model. And we provide the platform to be able to do that. So marketing, we get those rooms filled. We also handle the screenings, doing a background check, making sure they haven't had any felonies in the last 7 years. Income verification showing 2 times the weekly rental rate, which is a little bit different than traditional rentals, which are at 3 times, right? So again, making it more accessible, considering it's already a lot more affordable because most of the roofs here in Jacksonville are going anywhere from about 150 on the low end upwards to about 300 on the high end. And then we also handle the eviction report, making sure they haven't had more than 1 eviction. And then the really big piece in this is that 24/7 member support, right? So these are this is our back end team that's handling those member supports. As you can imagine, when you get, 6, 7, 8 people in under one roof, there's disputes that are going to happen. But we've been doing this now for the last 5 years. And so we built out an entire playbook that includes standard operating procedures for pretty much any kind of thing that you can imagine. And whether it's fines, whether it's terminations, whether it's complete banning from the platform, we have these systems in place that ensure a quality experience. The really interesting thing is that we've now serviced over 25,000 members, and we did a survey. And when I say members, I'm sure I should clarify here because it's a little bit different terminology. People who stay in a PadSplit, we call them members. We don't call them tenants, and that kind of ties into the legal strategy we have with PadSplit, which we can talk about here in a bit. But members, we did a survey of all those members, and of those who responded, 88.8% said that they would recommend us to a friend or family member because it's affordable and it's also flexible. So they have a 31-day commitment period, and after that, it goes onto a week-to-week basis. And final point I want to make here is just that payment collection, right? So that's where the members pay on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And then you as the host, you get paid out on a monthly basis from all earnings from the previous month minus the platform fees. So that's kind of like a high overview rundown. I know I kind of threw a lot of points out there at you, and I'm sure we can kind of pick that away, but just that's kind of a high overview PadSplit.
We will. I'm not going to let you answer all my questions that quickly. I can't let you off the hook like that. So
I ruined all the fun of this interview, man. That's it. That's a wrap. We're done.
All right, and that's the episode, everybody. Okay. All right. Well, this co-living concept, I feel like that's kind of a catchy term right now, co-living. We've all heard of boarding houses or subletting a room. This stuff's been going on since Jesus walked the earth. But now we have this day and age of Uber and Lyft and Airbnb and VRBO. And I think society, we talked about this over coffee, society is getting more comfortable with this peer-to-peer platform, kind of this tech stack, if you will, coming into old conventional businesses like renting real estate. So how is PadSplit different than the old boarding house of, the days of Nazareth?
Yeah, no, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're on a mission to redefine the way co-living is done, and it's not an easy thing, right? And there's a lot of change in the status quo that we're challenged with, and also to your point, kind of building out this on a scalable solution that in these major metro markets where we're facing these housing shortages, offering a solution that empowers those who can be a part of it, right, through the rentals that they own. And so it's very complex, it's very intricate, but the team of about 160 that we have now here at PadSplit and growing, we firmly believe in this mission. And when we think about in the early 2010s, when like that shared economy really started picking up, especially with the rise of Airbnb, that was that first kind of initial entry into the US being comfortable with sharing. I'm originally from Croatia. And so when I went back overseas this past summer and I was sharing about what PadSplit is doing, they're like, how is this even a growing company? We've been doing this for so long. Like room rentals are totally normal and shared spaces is the norm there. And so, it's the difference here is that it's a system that works and a system that allows the investors to earn more and also provides that quality experience for those who are staying there. Because historically, these rooming houses and boarding homes have had this negative connotation, right? And that's actually something that the Wall Street Journal published recently when they were highlighting the amazing thing that PadSplit is doing is that it is providing that quality experience. And so when we think about Airbnb, right, they've been now in business for just about a little over 15 years. And some of the challenges that I hear from short-term rental investors who I speak with are the saturation, the increased regulation, the taxes and fees. And I think what we're moving into now in this new era of real estate investing is more of this sort of fractionalized shared economy. We've heard about fractionalized vacation rentals, right? And now with PadSplit, it's sort of this fractionalized, rental solution, right? Because now you are creating these multiple units within a single family home. And, what we recommend is at least 5 rooms. You're not starting with a 5-bedroom home, but rather having the square footage needed to add those rooms. Now, PadSplit's not the one adding the rooms. We do have a vendor network built out that includes licensed general contractors. It includes insurance providers, lenders, realtors, anyone that you would need that can kind of help you in that journey of becoming a host. And they've gone through a training. They've gone through a rigorous process to become a part of that vendor network. So we can connect you with them to help do that work and complete that. But where I can really serve is being that expert advisor, making sure we're providing guidance, meeting the room requirements that we have. And really the sweet spot is getting into those 6 to 8 rooms. That's when you really start to maximize those returns, seeing upwards of, $4,000-5,000 per month effective gross on these single family rental homes that are on your kind of traditional workforce housing neighborhoods.
All right. Now, you mentioned over 420,000 people in Jacksonville would statistically kind of fall within the demographic you serve, like this, more your
Right.
workforce income. What is, and I'm sure it varies a bit through Jacksonville, but what's a typical renter profile? Who typically comes to you? I don't know if you call them avatars in your business, but what would be the typical renter?
Yeah, so in that survey that we did of the members, it came back that the median age was 36 years old. And household income, I'm sorry, their median income is 27.4K. Now, keep in mind, we operate in the single resident occupancy space of the real estate industry. So one individual per room, no pets, unless it's an approved service animal, no kids, no couples, and no overnight guests. Those are standard rules that they have to agree to as a part of being a member of PadSplit. 90% of our members do earn below $50,000, and 77% of them work full time, with 90% of them being employed. You also kind of have to think about like that fixed income demographic as well. Those who are on Social Security and maybe have a limited capacity in terms of what they can afford, PadSplit may be an option as well for them. And so the really interesting thing about PadSplit is that um, these are members of the community that we see every single day, right? People who are working in restaurants and bars. And as Jacksonville continues to grow, particularly with, the Gateway Jacks project and the development of the downtown area, there's going to be more and more of a need for affordable housing. And so, yes, there's a lot of new construction initiatives going on, but the one challenge with new construction is the amount of time that it takes. And even with when you look at like multifamily commercial units and apartments, there's still those barriers to entry for, someone who's making, 27, 30K may not be able to qualify for those rentals. So really, PadSplit is just another option because ideally, PadSplit's not meant to be a long-term solution for these members. It's meant to be kind of a stepping stone into either a home or their own apartment or studio or something like that. And we do offer some additional fringe benefits to our members beyond just, affordability and a quality place. And that includes positive credit reporting, right? So as they're making their payments on time, they're building their credit. Average member increases their credit by about 48 points. Access to telemedicine service as well through Teladoc. We have a partnership with them. And then also interest-free microloans in the event of some kind of hardship, right? So, and this is really where that member support team kicks in. So if they do have, issues with payment, that's where we reach out, upon 2 weeks of missed payments, offer options, but also make sure that they understand the consequences of not paying, which can include termination or complete banning from the platform, essentially kind of cutting off the access to the PadSplit platform and affordable housing.
And I jumped on your website and I see you have, at the time of this recording, looks like 229 rooms available from 120 per week. And that's the low, it's the low side, then on up.
Yeah.
That does strike me as, so quick math, what's that, 480 a month. And I can see the benefit of I'm not anti-apartment, but there is a different feel to living in a shared house with ideally larger common area, possibly a yard, maybe some porches. It has a different feel than a multifamily community. So I see this price point that you're hitting, and I see how that works with your target demographic. Now, you mentioned something that I didn't catch when we met before, but you do micro loans or like short-term loans to you call them members, not tenants, but just is that collateralized, or is it just based on, you said they build their credit while they're members within your PadSplit community? Is that how they get the credit to get the short-term loans?
Yeah, so this is actually a service that's provided through our partner Isusu. And so Isusu has, certain requirements for that. Really, we try to understand their situation. Now, what they're looking for is some kind of hardship, right? And now, I don't believe these are collateralized loans. They have their own approval process that they go through, but it's really just elevating that co-living experience. And one of the interesting things you'll see about PadSplit is that many times there isn't really a shared space in a PadSplit home. You won't see a living room typically. There'll likely be a dining room. There's going to be a shared kitchen, shared laundry room. Because what we found is that these shared spaces do promote gatherings, and then those gatherings lead to disputes. And so we're really trying to do as much as we can to kind of minimize that. And that's what I do in my role is, walking properties, doing virtual walkthroughs through photos and videos, or even leveraging tools like Casa to create these 2D floor plans, and then bringing in the contractor to make sure kind of everything is built up to code. So we really try to leverage the tech that's available and out there to provide a quality experience throughout that journey and becoming a host. And we understand that, hey, data is really important when you're deciding to make your decisions and how you want to configure your room or your home. So what we offer on our platform is this PadSplit zip code map. Essentially, it's real-time data where you can see how a zip code is performing, the number of active PadSplits that are in that area, what the average weekly room rate is, and it also does break it out by whether it has a private bathroom versus a shared bathroom. Because as you can imagine, man, if you're going to go rent a room, you're much more likely to rent a room that has that private ensuite bathroom so that we don't have to share that. And those are the rooms that do book a lot quicker, but also at a higher rate as well. And so you also get to see the occupancy rate. You get to see the days to first booking, days to 80% occupancy, all this data that's really valuable in ensuring that you're looking in the right zip code and also able to accurately project your earnings with your PadSplit home.
And so I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you. What makes an
Sure.
ideal candidate for a pad split home?
Yes. So, number one thing we want to look at is in major densely kind of metropolitan areas, kind of being within that 20-mile radius of city center. And we want to look at the square footage. All right. Ideally, at least about 1,400 square feet, because the goal is to get to those 6 to 8 rooms. So anything between 1,400 to 2,000 square feet. And something else that's really important for pad split homes is access to public transportation, because only about 50% of our members do have their own vehicles. So generally, when I'm working with the client, I'm going to pull that address up and then pull up Google Maps and use that transit feature to see, hey, is there, transit stop within a mile walking distance? And now I often get the question about like parking. All right, like this is great. You have all these rooms, but where are all these people parking? As a host, you get to set the number of parking spots that are available at your home. And the members, if they have a vehicle, they have to register it on their member profile. And so once your, parking spots fill up, if they have a vehicle registered, then they can't book that room, right? And that's where it is important to be close to that public transit stop. So just because if you have 8 rooms and you don't have 8 parking spots, it's not a deal breaker. It's totally fine. And so those are, I think, the key areas. And obviously, you don't want to go in an HOA, as they're just not investor friendly. So trying to, just avoid those and ensure that kind of all those other check boxes are hit. And that's again another place where I can advise and provide guidance.
And a typical length of stay, and is the I'll call it a unit, the room, I guess. Typical length of stay
Yeah.
plus, is this room, is it typically furnished, or does the member bring their own furniture?
So it is furnished, and that's one of the big selling points with PadSplit is that for the members, it's a furnished quality place, and they only have one bill that they have to pay, so they don't have to worry about having that first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, furnishing the place, getting those utilities up and running. Like for somebody who's making 25 to 30, 40K, like that can be a really high upfront expense and barrier to entry to those traditional rentals. But with PadSplit, it's a convenient option because all that is included. It's simplified. It's all digital, paid through the platform, one bill. The average stay here in PadSplit is here in Jacksonville is 7.6 months. And so we really do operate in that midterm rental range. And current occupancy rates here in Jacksonville as a whole, as a citywide, is about 84%. And the days to 80% fill is 40 days. Just in the last 30 days, we have had now around 16,140 searches on our platform for room rentals. And so, we know there's a high interest for this, and there's the zip code, all this data that I'm sharing with you right now. This is all publicly available once you create your PadSplit host account. You can access this and see real time.
Yeah, I see. And I'm looking on your website now. You have quite a bit of inventory. Looks like West Side, kind of on the edge of Murray Hill, Lakeshore area, kind of that Cedar Hill
Yeah.
area. Yeah. And There is a lot. I mean, I'm very familiar with that area because I currently reside in Riverside, and just heading up there towards Publix and other amenities. I see you have a lot of rooms in that direction. Um, and I know we know your rental rates. Is there a platform? I guess I should say it this way. Is PadSplit the destination for your members to find these rooms? Are you filtering out into other websites, or do people need to know to go to PadSplit?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So part of that like marketing benefit that we provide to our investors is the fact that we are the nation leader in room rentals. So if like you go into Google right now and type in Jacksonville room rentals, you will see that PadSplit is that number one result. As a marketplace, our number one expense is marketing. We spend hundreds of thousands in every single city just to ensure we have that top ranking spot. Now, in addition to that, we're also maximizing the organic reach. So we do cross-channel listing. We have a cross-channel listing service. Right now, there's about 60 plus listing service providers where you can list a room for rent. Some examples include like roomies.com, roomster.com, Zumper, and there's many others. So we will automatically distribute across those channels. And that's really just to ensure that we're capturing and maximizing that organic reach, people who are searching on these other listing services. And like, these are again just listing services. They don't provide the additional services that we do to, help you in that hosting journey. And one of the number one things that you'll hear from existing PadSplit hosts is just how simple that platform is. I often work with short-term rental investors who are considering converting over, and the short-term rental business has really grown in complexity. There's all these, kind of segregated tools. Like if you want to do your due diligence, you got to go to AirDNA. If you want to do your dynamic pricing, Wheelhouse, Price Labs, and then you need another property management software. And then there's just like all these complex things where with PadSplit, we designed it in a way to where all the tools you need are built in there to the platform. And we have a partnership with Remote Lock, so you can automate those new codes that are generated because each of the interior doors do require having those electronic locks, so that way the members have their own unique code to be able to access that room and also secure their personal items in there as well. So it's simple, it's profitable, and it's at the end of the day a need. Right now in the US, we have a 7.2 million housing unit shortage. And I can tell you right now, there's no shortage of hotels in the US, right? And so that's why we are seeing this pullback on short-term rentals. And I think there's always going to be a place for short-term rentals. I'm not here to say doom and gloom on Airbnb, but I think it's going to be the ones who have those experiential, high-end luxury properties that are going to be crushing. And the ones that are going to get crushed are the ones that have those run-of-the-mill, three-bedroom places that don't really offer something that's unique.
And I'm looking at your map here, and there's not really much once you go east of 295. Is that demographics, economics, price point of the real estate? Or maybe you're just not there yet. Maybe those rooms are to come. But can you speak to that?
Sure. So I think we're just not there yet. When we initially got into Jacksonville, it was November of 2021. And, a large majority of our growth was in the 09, 08, 06 area. And I joined back in May of last year. And since I've joined, this map has continued to open up. And what you're looking at is just kind of as someone who's looking to rent a room. When you create that host account, you'll actually gain access to more of those tools and resources that are available, including like the proprietary earnings calculator, the map, the PadSplit marketplace, which includes like turnkey pad splits if you don't want to go through the conversion process. But bringing it back to your question, we are seeing this expansion, and we saw this in Atlanta as well. That was our kind of initial market where PadSplit started, and now we're there. We have about 5,000 units there. Total nationwide, we have 11,000 units. And when I say units, that I do refer to rooms. Just kind of keep that in mind. But we have 5,000 there now, and it's really just kind of expanded. I think we're going to start to see that in all of our core markets. And here in Jacksonville specifically, like we're just not there yet. I think it's only a matter of time, especially as brand awareness grows, as recognition amongst the workforce community grows, and also as our partnerships grow. So we have a partnership with Tulsa Welding School, where a portion of our portfolio is dedicated to their students, and so that way they have an affordable place to stay. We actually have brought in their director of student experience, Karen, and one of the challenges that she was having when she took that role on is these students are coming from the Midwest where, housing is pretty affordable. They're used to paying, $800, $700 for a studio. They get here to Jacksonville and, are sticker shocked and surprised at the cost of apartments here. And so, we developed a partnership with them where now we're able to offer these affordable units over to their students. And it's been a great partnership. And we do anticipate to continue to grow these partnerships with local employers as well.
Well, between like these micro loans and these employment relationships, that is not something you typically see offered by, certainly not by Airbnb or other peer-to-peer platforms. So I can see the mission side is definitely authentic. I've been a super host on Airbnb for at least 4 years, and I currently only operate one. I had seven, and they can be great, but they can also be wildly frustrating. And I'm wondering, with your platform, PadSplit, do you tend to pull more owners that are, now I'm talking on like the hosting owning side, do you tend to draw more owners of
Mhm.
long-term traditional rent that want to maybe up their revenue, add some bedrooms, try a new platform? Or conversely, do you pull a lot of people from like your short-term Airbnb, VRBO, all that are like, you know what? I want to dial down my intensity a little bit, but I don't want to go all the way down in
Yeah.
revenue to a traditional rental.
Yes, I'd say it's about a 70-30 split where 70% are those who have existing long-term rentals, and then 30% are individuals who I'm working with who have these short-term rentals and are looking to convert over. But in terms of the headache that you talked about and like the challenges with short-term rentals, that is a big point, right? It's this sort of operational nightmare of getting all those systems in place and then also dealing with it's more of a hospitality business than it is a property management business, right? I recently attended the Jacksonville Wealth Builder Summit, and JWB had tried doing some short-term rentals on their own, and that was their number one piece of feedback is that you are in the business of hospitality. This is not property management. Whereas with PadSplit, it's yes, a little bit more work than a long-term rental. However, the great thing is that we have everything built in the platform and we're handling some of those things that a traditional property manager would, which includes the marketing, which includes the screenings, which includes the 24/7 support, and also the payment collection. Really, the only thing a host would be responsible for is, the lawn care, pest control, any maintenance items that the members report through the PadSplit platform. We do have a built-in maintenance task system. So if there's like a leaky faucet or something going on in the home, they can just report it in there and you're notified, or your property manager, right? If you want to outsource that portion of the business. And then the final point is the turns. Okay. So when somebody moves out of a room, you'll be notified through the PadSplit platform and you'll have to send a cleaner out there to do a clean of the room. The nice thing about it is that those cleans are typically cheaper than, it would be for an Airbnb turn because it's only one room. And you can also build in what's called a move-in fee from your host dashboard, and that move-in fee is the equivalent of a cleaning fee in the short-term rental space. It's essentially there for you to be able to cover that cost of the clean. By default, it's going to be set to $100. Now, you as the host, you have full control and full flexibility in setting your pricing and creating your listing and doing everything you need to do to be set up for success. And those who do come from the short-term rental background, I think have the greatest amount of success because they're already familiar with kind of how a platform works. The difference here is that we're marketing to a completely untapped demographic. Airbnb is so honed in and focused on those who are traveling, those who are looking for a short-term rental, vacationers. We are servicing the local workforce community. And another thing to kind of think about as well is, there's talks of a recession or an economic downturn that may happen. That's, in a way, that's tailwinds for us, right? Because that means that more people do need affordable housing. Whereas if we do hit that recession, the number one thing that consumers cut is the travel budget, right? And so that's going to be a huge hit there. So if you are a short-term rental host, you're essentially three-quarters of the way to becoming a PadSplit host, right? Assuming it kind of fits, the area and the home itself fits, our criteria because you already have the property, it's already a long-term debt, you already have it furnished. That final missing piece is really just seeing, hey, where can we optimize underutilized space? Is there parts in this home where we can add temporary walls and create a room out of it to increase your overall cash flow, but also provide more affordable housing?
Now, if let's say let's just say I'm a traditional landlord and I bring a portfolio to you. Let's say I have a half dozen rental houses in Riverside. What would somebody
Mhm.
expect to make? What would be like my additional rate of return? It doesn't have to be down to the decimal, but what do people typically enjoy going from traditional single family unfurnished rentals to a pad split furnished model? What is a typical value add in a rate of return for an operator?
Yeah, I mean it varies greatly, and that's where that earnings calculator that we have along with the map and using those in conjunction can be, a huge help in getting clear on that. I will say that the kind of average pad split home, I mean, I'm talking, about seven rooms, let's call it, because the sweet spot's 6 to 8, but let's say it's about 7 rooms. And if we look in like kind of the call it '05 area, there in the Riverside, it's probably going to bring in around like 4.5 to $6,000 a month, right? And there's again a lot of different factors that go into that, but I think that's where it's really important to leverage the tools that we have available to get clear on that.
And what
And that's
does
effective
pad
gross, I should
split?
say.
Yeah, that's definitely top line.
Yeah.
I certainly understand that. And what does pad split take for if it's a platform fee or however you have but the whole bundle of services, what is the pad split fee?
So we have a two-part structure with PadSplit, and really this two-part structure is designed to just make sure that you're maximizing your returns as a host and also providing a quality experience for our members. Really just trying to align the incentives here as a platform. With PadSplit, there's no hidden fees, there's no monthly fixed fees, and it's really straightforward in that there's a booking fee when somebody moves in. This booking fee is 10 days of the first 10 days of revenue for every move-in. All right. So for example, if you set your weekly rate to $210, comes out to a $30 daily rate, that booking fee would be $300 upon move-in. Now remember, there's a 31-day commitment period. And this is kind of how we operate outside of the short-term rental regulations, and in that midterm rental space. And so first 10 days of revenue, and then after that, it's only 8% on revenue collected after that.
So as an operator, as a landlord, I'm incentivized, if possible, to have a longer stay and maybe configure my property in a way that might be more accommodating to a longer stay. Well, it
Big
sounds
time.
like, your fee is not dissimilar to the almost hands-off traditional single family management fee. I mean, a lot of that is going to be close to 10%, high single digits. So, and
Right.
they're after tenant screening, tenant placement, evictions, other collection fees. So, I think that's actually sounds fairly reasonable. And I do think that I hear more and more and more about the affordability issue in Jacksonville. I was on planning commission for 4 years. A lot of subdivisions came through and a lot of them
Mm,
were entry level or higher, and so meaning like they were for like kind of like your starter, but then your starter, it just keeps going up and up and up. It's very hard to
yeah.
get a single family starter house in Jacksonville, depending on what part of town you look. It's likely going to be a townhome or an attached dwelling. Nothing wrong with
Hmm.
that, but the days of getting, a 3-2 on a, 50, 60, 70 foot wide lot with a garage as a starter home in Jacksonville, that's becoming harder and harder to come by. So I definitely see
Big
that
time.
you're feeling a need. I do a fair amount of work in the hospitality and hotel sector and some brokerage and consulting. And a lot of the motels, and I'm not going to disparage any of my clients or owners, but a lot of the motels that are not really designed for extended stay, you said your average is 7.6 months. A lot of these facilities,
Mm,
it's a simple 220 square foot room, um, with like a
yeah.
with like a mini fridge and a microwave at best. They're not, a lot of them are not traditional extended stay suites, but people will stay there for months and months and months. And then the owners will check them out, check them back in, try and stay compliant with the city. But my point is, those guests are paying rates in excess of what you're advertising here on your website. So, and they don't have a mailing address.
And those are the they don't include those additional fringe benefits that we talked about, the positive credit reporting, the access to the interest-free microloans, and those as many other services as well. And like one of the things we found as well is that social ability factor as well. Like we have nearly an 89% recommendation rate. And, there's opportunities for them to meet others that can then, create other opportunities for them in the future because, you know, the point is here is that PadSplit is not meant to be a long-term solution. Like we certainly do have some people who stay a couple years at a time, but the hope is they can increase their economic mobility to then be able to get their own place and maybe even then, live with one of their pad mates that they previously had. And like when somebody's interested in booking a room as well, we have them take a pad mate. It's an optional thing, but it's a pad mate profile test. So you'll get to see if they're an introvert or an extrovert. You'll get to see if they're an early riser or a night owl, their overall cleanliness. And then all this information is also shared with the host, that they're inquiring to stay at their room. And the host will get to see their member profile. It kind of shows up as like an inquiry as it does on Airbnb, but you have a lot more data. You get to see all the checks that we've done. You get to see their occupation, their age, various factors that kind of help you. And we also have a rating system that's built in. So you can see what other members have rated that member, what other hosts have rated that member, feedback they've received, really just trying to give you the information and data that you need as a host to whether you want to approve or decline that inquiry.
Well, I'm pretty confident this episode is going to trigger some follow-up questions that we don't have time for, but I would certainly encourage the audience to email me or reach out to E when he gives his contact later. I can think of other questions we don't necessarily have time for. I know you have clever ways of getting through some of the regulations of putting this many rooms on a
We
property.
didn't even touch on the
Yeah.
legal strategy. That's such a
Let's
big
let's
part.
take
Yeah.
that was actually my last note. I have two things before I start asking you the feel good exit questions, but the two things I had
Sure.
left were how you're navigating the legality, and we'll just try and hit that in a quick, punchy manner. And the last question I'm going to ask you
Got
is
it.
your 2024 outlook for PadSplit in Jacksonville.
Sure. So yeah, let's talk about the legal strategy because this is a really important part of the business model and it's a way we minimize risk for our host. Our belief here at PadSplit is that the existing zoning laws that we see in these major metro cities that are facing terrible, affordable housing issues with, dire consequences. We believe that these are going to be changing because these were established when there wasn't a 7.2 million unit shortage. And there was even an article published by NPR recently that, mentioned that. And we see that here in Jacksonville with that change in the ADU laws in 2022. So, but until we get to that point, until we see that reform in the existing zoning laws, we have developed a strategy that again, minimizes the risk. Essentially, the way it works is with every PadSplit home that goes live on our platform, we create a unique PadSplit LLC that is then assigned to that home. That PadSplit LLC is the tenant in a corporate long-term lease agreement with you or your LLC in which the home is held in as the landlord. Okay, so in the eyes of the law, we have this long-term lease agreement with that individual legal entity being PadSplit LLC as a tenant. Now, the members, the whole reason we call them members is because once they pass our background and financial and eviction report check, then they have to agree to the members operating agreement to become a member of that PadSplit LLC. And so when you look at existing zoning laws here in Jacksonville, specifically in Duval County, it mentions how there's a maximum of 5 unrelated individuals in a single family home. But if you read along further, it does mention that relation is not only established by family time, there's 3 other ways that relation is established: by adoption, by marriage, or by law. And so that final point by law is, how we've now established relation amongst all of these members by having them all agree to this members operating agreement to become a part of this member-based organization that we've created. So it's very unique, and it's what has allowed us to scale now to 11,000 units nationwide and continuing to grow. And it's a big factor in the PadSplit business model. And now, when we think about 2024, I'm very excited. I'm incredibly stoked. Jacksonville has been ranked as the fastest growing market for PadSplit, and we're in 18 different markets now. And I think the reason for that is because of, the acquisition cost of properties. It's lower than other major metro cities here in Florida. When you look at, South Florida or Orlando or even Tampa, investors can really get in at a much lower price. But also, when we look at the growth and these various projects that are going on, I know this is more kind of a 5-year horizon, but even where we are today, there's still such a big need for affordable housing. And I think the best is yet to come here in Jacksonville and PadSplit. And our goal here is to get to 2,400 units by the end of the year. We're currently at about 1,100. So we got some ways to go. We got big goals, big dreams, but I think with the community, the vendors that we have, and our investors and hosts who support this movement, I think we're going to get there and just continue to scale and grow.
Well, I hope you do get there. I think the need is real, and you're hitting a segment that's not actively targeted. So I'm pulling for you.
Big time.
All right, E.
Thank
I've been quiet on this episode because there's just so much I wanted you to get out. It's rare that we have a guest
Yeah.
that is talking through a truly novel or new software platform or approach. And what you're doing is people have rented by the rooms before. We joked around about the Jesus days early on. However, the way you're approaching it with kind of the tech stack and working through some of the legalities and who you're tailoring these properties for, I do think it's really unique, and I'm glad you came on. All right, closing questions. Why do you love Jacksonville?
The community, man. So before joining PadSplit, I was in corporate healthcare sales. Got my finance degree from UCF, and then I got into this prestigious sales program with General Electric, GE Health in their healthcare division. And, I had the opportunity to live in about 7 different cities in a span of 2.5 years. And so I got a taste of South Florida, got a taste of Milwaukee, got a taste of Memphis, North Carolina, all these different cities. And by far, without a doubt, man, out of all the places that I've lived in, Jacksonville has been that number 1 spot for me. And it just comes down to the people. I think the growing culture that we have here, and the just drive for growing this city is really what motivates me. And I'm really excited for the future of Jacksonville.
Yeah, and Jacksonville is still a fairly young city. I mean, our demographics are, we have a lot of people in their 30s in this town. And there's a lot
Mhm.
of, I like to say there's a lot of seats that are not taken. So I feel like for the younger, not even that young, but the hustler that's willing to go in there and work, there's still a lot of room for mobility in Jacksonville in a lot of different sectors. All right, what's your
Mhm.
favorite local restaurant?
Easily, without a doubt, Kairos Jacks on Beach Boulevard. If you've ever had a real estate meeting with me, I very likely have suggested that as a spot to go to. Some of the best bowls in the city. Love the smoothies and the juices as well. I'm also a yoga teacher as well, so I'm all about kind of that healthy food. But Kairos Jacks on Beach Boulevard is amazing, and they have a drive-through as well. So if you're in a rush, you need something healthy, check out Kairos. You won't regret it.
Wow. Honestly, I'd never even heard of it. So now I've got to check it out. All right. Your favorite place, your favorite location in Jacksonville.
So I love to surf, hence the board in the background. I know you love to surf as well, Ian. And without a doubt, Hannah Park is the best spot in Jacksonville for me. I used to mountain bike as well, so it was kind of like a mountain bike and surf day for me sometimes. Just get out there early, hit the swells, and then, after that, go over to bike the trails, and then once again hit the swells again. So it was just a really great spot, getting outdoors, and great place for kids and family as well. So it's just all around an awesome spot.
Well, I couldn't agree more. We were there this weekend, took the family, met some friends, did a whole day in the
Nice.
sun. Yeah, water's still a little chilly. We're recording this episode in March, but I toughed it out. It's beautiful out there. And of course, I'm pro development. I have a commercial real estate podcast, but it is nice to go to an undisturbed beach, big dunes that have never been touched,
Mhm.
walk through, the native vegetation and look left and right and not see a structure. Kind of reminds me of being in Costa
Oh,
Rica without the hills. All right, where can people find you? E, learn more about you, follow up with
sure.
you about PadSplit.
Yeah, so I can be reached out directly, Emanuel at padsplit.com, and Emanuel spelled with 1 M. I'm also on LinkedIn, Emanuel Premate. I'm on Instagram as Big REI Growth, really driving big real estate investing growth here throughout the community. And we do have also a PadSplit Jacksonville Facebook group, so that's where people are posting PadSplit deals. I'm sharing events as well. So you can just type in PadSplit Jacksonville and join into that group, and tons of resources in there as well. I'm very big on value-driven relationships, even if it's just through an online community like the Facebook group. So you'll find a ton of resources there. And speaking of events, we just publicly shared our next upcoming event, which is Mastering PadSplit Deal Analysis. And so we're going to be having it at the Lionshare co-work space. It's April 24th at 6 p.m. is when we're going to start. And essentially, the first half of that event is going to be all about analyzing pad split deals. We're going to have the potential property. We're going to kind of walk through step by step how it analyze that deal, and also sharing some of the tools and software that we have to really make it efficient, be able to analyze those deals within minutes. And then we're also going to have a couple of guest panelist speakers. So we have Gonzalo Corzo from Cash Geeks that's going to be a panelist. We're also going to have Riley Sheehan from Net Worth Realty. We're going to have Gary Booth from Bold City Property Solutions. They do property management for pad splits as well as they're a brokerage, and so they sell turnkey pad splits as well. And then we're also going to have Kurt Stein from Home Scan Inspection. So really strong panel. We're stoked to kind of hear from them on what are their tips to acquiring deals here in Jacksonville in this market today, and really just trying to provide value and education to the community. That's been my number one priority since I joined in May, and just trying to keep that going and ride this wave of co-living in Jacksonville.
I love it. And we'll make sure to get a link to that in the show notes. So this episode will definitely air
Cool.
before your event. And we'll make sure people can find it in the show notes. All right, guys, that has been a lot of fun with E. Please follow, share this episode with someone that needs it, because I know they're out there. Rate and review this podcast on whatever platform you're enjoying it. Makes a huge difference and allows us to bring you high quality content and guests like E with PadSplit today. As I mentioned at the top of the show, go to investwithacoach.com, enter your basic information to never miss another investment, networking, or educational opportunity. If you're into scrolling socials, we are Instagram Yield Coach, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, also Yield Coach. All right, that's a wrap on the Jacksonville Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Ian Brown, signing off, reminding everybody to lace up and leave it all on the field. Yield Coach out.